This is a talk where I tell you about stuff that I've used during the years, mostly to encourage others to use them and so that you know also what can be done with Smalltalk. Right? I think a lot of people know that Smalltalk is really powerful and it can do a lot of things. And I'm constantly trying to make sure that to apply that idea to my development, my projects. And this is a summary of what I've been doing continuously and with different tools that I'm using. So we'll talk about the different parts of how the application that I'm working on has been scaling. So it's an end user application. It started, or the first features that I'll talk about are some stuff that I've mentioned before, just to make a summary for those who haven't seen or heard about it before. It's a local personal server. So the features are just for the user that's running the application. Then what happens when you have other clients, in this case web clients, inside the same local network, how that changes when there are features that are required outside the local network and why that's the case, and which frameworks I'm been using. And finally, the most maybe the newer part of what I want to tell you about is what happens when you have a cloud server, when you want the application to be usable by anyone, anywhere. So you may have been at previous Smalltalks where I've talked about Era. This is an application that used to play role-playing games. Okay, so where there's a story and someone tells it, and there are dice rolls involved. Normally, there are rules. So I've already talked about maybe the idea, how I've used Smalltalk to model the rules of that game, the user interface, and then the deployment to get it to the different users. And 2 years back, I also talked about how that even turned to a business, a really small side business, but it's my personal project and it's even giving an income. Okay, so let's review the features of the application. So for a local personal server, what do I mean is that people may want to create their own characters for the game. So the application allows them to start the server and locally use that to create the character, then to level it up, which is what I'm calling the character development. After some characters are created, someone can sell an adventure, and there's the adventure management. I'll show the features in a moment. Inventory management, and also if you want to create treasures, travel, forage, that's looking for herbs and food in the wild during the adventures. That's a typical feature required when you're playing this type of adventure. So just so you know what I'm talking about, let's go to the demo. So this is no. Then I okay, you're seeing what I'm seeing, but we can continue. So this is Era. The idea is that it's a web application, but at this point it doesn't matter because the person that's starting the server is using the application. It doesn't, it's just local cost, as you can see. I did this at some point because this enables me to make an application that is independent of the technology behind it. I mean, the web application, it's always a web application. You always have a browser. You don't have to worry if you're working in Windows, Linux, or whatever, or there are specific tools to design. This allows me to take that out of the equation. So users would normally at this point just download the application, run it, and that as soon as it's finished running the initial startup of the server would load your page in the web browser. So what I mentioned is that you can create characters. Okay, so we start in steps. Okay, And then if you create already your character, then you can go know the character to the field. Okay, so different features. The features keep piling up during the year. This is the adventuring module where someone could, to tell the story. You gather with your friends around the table, and someone would use a notebook to a laptop computer to use ERA to check the stuff without having to consult books, rules, and handles different things. Okay, so if someone wants to, do check something, okay, you can here put whatever the character wrote, and you get there, stuff like that, and then you can go and check in the log what happened. So it's used to keep track of all that. But I've already mentioned this is only in case you haven't seen this before. So these are the features in the local personal server. Now, how I'm doing this is I'm using Faro, okay, to develop. I'm using also Boy. I have that here in case. This is like I'm trying to sell a lot of things that are free. So Faro, you may already know. I'm using Boy. Boy is one of the things that you can find here in the Buenos Aires Smalltalk community. Okay, so open source projects. If you need them, you have Boy there, for example. These are interesting stuff that we found useful on top of Faro. Then I'm using Kepler of the packages in Buenos Aires Smalltalk. I'm using it for rulebooks. Hernan mentioned that we already know that it's okay to have the application split into systems. In my case, it's rulebooks, so everything that is related to magic is a magic system, and everything related to a character is a character system, and this really works really nice. Then I'm using Seaside to create the web views boardwalk, which is another package that will add more features to Seaside. Willow is what we are using. We have a lot of talks you can check online from previous years. That's how we do the HX interaction on top of Seaside, and in particular I'm using jQuery UI and semantic UI packages from Willow. And then I have Renoir ST, which Gabriel already gave some talk and years past about it, which generates the CSS for the application. So now in case you have, apart from the features on your local server, you need people to access information in the server, it's when the clients on your LAN feature comes up. If you're playing at the table and you need people to use their smartphones to check something about their characters, there are some parts of the system that allow you to get information on your character. You can send private messages to a player and they get live status updates. An example here. This hero status module will allow you to well, this you would normally see in your smartphone. It's more tailored to small. You normally see it like that. Okay, the idea here is that the user can get and check information on their character while they are playing, and also get live status updates. Okay, if during the adventure okay, something were to happen to this character, hit and fun. Okay, you see it updates here, but it also updates here. So the character, the player gets live updates on that. And also I can send messages from the game master to the character. So to do this, I'm still using Faro, Seaside, Willow, and Renoir. I just had to write more code, more Smalltalk code, but it's all in Smalltalk. I'm writing the jQuery stuff in Smalltalk and the CSS stuff in Smalltalk. But now I have multiple browser connections, so I have to design the CSS and some of the features to take that into consideration. The other thing that I want to promote in this talk is server-sent events. I don't know, has anyone worked with server-sent events already? No, not so far. No. Okay, one. Well, server-sent events are a very nice solution. It's not something that I did. It's something that's supported in Seaside for Faro at least. I've checked it. I don't know in Rust if it's working or not. Because it depends on the HTTP server. Okay, so I know Sync has it because I have it working. It's very little amount of code that I had to write to use it. The idea in server-sent events is that the server will let any client know if there are updates without constant polling. Okay, so what you just saw that the application changed here. I was changing tabs, just not to take more of your time, but this updated on at the same moment that I clicked because the server sent this information to all the active connections, and I can do that as small as I want. I could say just, okay, this is the new information, and the socket connection, the stream could already have the new numbers, so that you just know not only that something happened, but what exactly I have to change in the client. Or I could just tell the client, okay, there are heavy updates, ask me for a refresh. But I'm not constantly polling, I'm just leaving a socket open. So this is like another solution when you have multiple connections, like in a situation where you have to connect to multiple clients without going the full, let's say, duplex way of using WebSockets. Okay, because it's not that I'm constantly wanting. I don't want to constantly have everyone connecting to everyone. Okay, so the players don't need to connect to other players at this point, so it's fine with this. Yeah, so this is basically in Faro. Just well, Faro is not famous. No. Faro is not famous here. Okay, okay. So let's keep that. If someone then wants to check the code, you let me know. And check. So then what happened was the pandemic. I don't know if anyone heard about that. Then I couldn't get the people to play at the same table. I told you about this for present 2 years ago. ERA, this application, missed a big opportunity because it was not prepared for people to play from outside the local network. It assumed that someone had a laptop with the local server, the main application, and then people would connect from smartphones. That was not the case during the pandemic. Everyone was in their homes, and a lot of people started playing like this. Okay, I'm at home telling about the adventure, and the rest of the people are each on their desktop computers. They don't want a small application for their smartphones, but I need to somehow give them the experience of being at the table. Okay, so here's where the idea of the game table comes up. The idea of having another module where you can also roll your dice inside the same application. Here. This is still in, as you can see, beta, but it's working fine. So the idea here is that the same player would go but connect from their home, okay, and would know what's going on with their character. So this is similar to what happens with the mobile connection, but here I will need to do something like this. No. So I want to have the experience of everyone at the table. And, bear with me for a second as I prepare the slides. It's prepared for big screen, so I'm not promising the CSS everything, but the idea here is that you can roll your dice, okay? So one person will be rolling their dice from their home, and the other will see, and the same goes the other way, okay? So you know what's happening to a group. The idea is to recreate the experience of being everybody at the same table, and I'm doing this again with the server-sent events because you register for the other events that the other people are creating. Okay. And you also have, I know, a lot of information. You can see all your skills and stuff like that. You can roll from here a specific skill. That's more like a feature thing, okay? Not more technological. But I had to write more, more code, of course. And also, something that happens at least in role-playing adventures is that the game master, the one selling the adventure, will sometimes roll dice without telling the people why they're rolling dice, just to create tension. So you are playing and okay, your characters are walking and you see the game master rolling their dice and not showing you what's happening and maybe just laughing behind the screen. So the idea here was that every time the game master here would use the random rolling feature, the characters will see mystery dice rolling. Okay, so the idea here is that you are at your home getting a part of that experience back of being at the table. Okay, and also while the status of your party members updates as well. So if someone is damaged, you see them doing that. So how to do this: more Faro, more Seaside, more Willow, more Renoir, because you have to keep writing a lot of stuff. And now I have multiple desktop browser connections and the server sent events from multiple sources, because anyone can roll their dice, and I need that information to go to the other ones. Luckily, in terms of code, it was nothing different. Okay, so that's a nice feature, but code-wise it's the same. So now going to the cloud server. The idea here was that some people might be losing on the chance to use the application because they tell me, I don't have a computer, this one's on Linux, Mac, or Windows. But some people seem they just have their cell phones, but they still want to play, or maybe they have a computer, but they don't know where to run it, or don't know how to open a port to open it to the other people. Once you have clients outside your local network, you need a little bit of technical knowledge to prepare that. So the idea here is let's give people a public URL so that they can play anywhere from at any time. Now this means that I need to handle the idea of gaming groups, because different people will be playing at the same time, but they will belong to different groups. But it has to be, at least in principle, the same Smalltalk running, and you don't want to mix that. It's similar to what you have if you have a cloud application for multiple clients. You have several users from different companies and you want the same application to be running just once. I mean, you can do, I know, like mirrors or stuff like that, but mostly you'd want one application. So you need user authentication, which in my case is just a mail and a password, and user authorization, because you could be just a player or the game master, so the features you have access to would change. Not much of the demo here, but so you see how it works. Here, okay. This is a public URL. Most of the users, I think all of the users already knew Era before going to use the web, the cloud version. So for them, the only difference is, okay, now I have to log in before starting playing, and then you get just a logout button. In the application, it's all the same. But every time you enter one of these, it checks that you have authorization to use it. If I were a player, I couldn't access the module where I have a way to see all the players, for instance. Okay, but every player gets the chance to create a new character. Okay. Okay. So now about the technology used to do this. Up to this point, everything I've told you is free, and you can use it, and it's open source, even you can contribute it. Now comes the part where I couldn't find a way to host a nice Smalltalk image in a reliable way without paying something. So I'm using DigitalOcean. I'm not saying it's the only way, just the way it's what we are using at Mercap, so it was easier for me to just use the same technology. One Droplet it's costing $6 a month, which coming from absolutely free is infinitely more, but it's still not that much money if you have paying customers. Once you have paying customers, $6 a month is not that much, and you can obviously scale it. This is just for a 1 gigabyte memory computer with a 10 gigabyte disk. But it gives me the SSH access, which allows me to just use it like any other Linux computer where I could run the server. So to me, it's a really nice experience to use. And then I have to have a domain so that people can connect to something that looks kind of professional. NetR and ComR domains are 8,500 pesos a year. Okay, 85. No, yeah, 8,500. Just not looking to the wrong number. But well, it's a little bit of extra money that I have to put, but I promise you that the rest of the features are all of them are all free. So there's also static IIO. This allows me to have a resource cache because I don't want the users to be constantly asking Seaside for the files. I use Renoir to declare how the CSS files work. For example, I generate them as static files, and then using static IIO, you use like this JH, your user repo tag and file. It has support for GitHub and GitLab. So whatever you put on a GitHub or GitLab repo, you can use basically as a CDN for free. Okay, that's been really good because I don't have to worry about that part, which also CDNs tend to be an extra cost. Also, I wanted to have a certificates, so to get the SSL layer right, I'm using Nginx for the reverse proxy with using obviously the certbot that works with Let's Encrypt and gives you the certificates that you need to have what you'd expect from an experience of logging and having an HTTPS connection, because otherwise I felt that users might not be so trusting of the application and security. I mean, it's just a game application in Smalltalk, but I've had users questioning my motives and stuff like that. I guess this helps with giving a sense of security to them. So also, I didn't want to implement user management. That was not my idea. My hobby is to implement gaming features. So having a user management component was not appealing to me. So OutZero, it's fine for user management. It has a free tier. It allows me to have a multi-tenant configuration where I can check the features in like development environment and then the station environment and the production environment, and it's all all in the free tier. Allows me to configure user roles, which allows me to use the game master and player differences. You can use custom attributes and a custom login screen as you've seen, and it's all part of the free tier. So I think this gives a Smalltalk application a nice integration with current framework, and it works really fine. Also on the Smalltalk side, I've had to use Willow OutZero, which is another of the open source packages that you can get, where there's information known by the CSI session, okay, and I can do like a strategy of local or OutZero to prevent I didn't want existing users of the local version to feel like they get, I don't know, worse performance, or if there's a bug still in the online part. I wouldn't want them to have to deal with that. So there's a strategy that knows if you're using one or the other. The same application that I'm deploying to the users, I'm installing in DigitalOcean. It's exactly the same, just the startup parameters are different. So complementing with the initial request in C-side, you can do that. Determine rendering decisions where to, if there's gonna be a user, you can log it, you can render it on the top right, like I showed, or the logout button is not shown in the local version. There's also ways to use cookie crossing there. It's part of C-side, but it complements nicely with the OutZero filter. I'm also using SpinKit. It's simple, but it's just the loading wheel that you see in some part of the application because it reduces user anxiety to know. It may even take longer because you have to go and render it and then stop rendering it, but the user says, okay, it's working. And in Willow's Pink, it has 11 different loading designs. And also, a nice feature to know if you are developing in a web application is the network throttling option. If you already know, it's maybe obvious, but for those who never seen it, the browser allows you to simulate download and upload delay to your request, so you can check what happens if there's like the slow 3G connection that comes by default. It's often enough to see what will happen in a high latency environment. And there's also the nice offline option because you want to check what happens if the user loses the connection in the middle. So it's a tool. It's in probably every browser by now, but please know that they are in use. So this is all that I told you. The different frameworks that I'm telling about. At one time, I'm not selling them to you. I'm just commenting that I found them useful. So you can check them. The two in green are paid, so you might want to consider looking for alternatives before that. And if you find them, please let me know, because that's my conclusion for now. Well, and now I have time for questions. Thanks.
You mentioned that you're using server-sent events. Are you serving them over HTTP2 or just because there's a limitation in server-sent event? The clients, like the browsers, have a limited. If you're over HTTP1, I think it's per browser limitation. I don't know if it's like 10 connection or something like stupidly low that the browser maker Chromium refuses to basically to raise because they want everybody to use HTTP2. So my question is, are you serving them using HTTP2 at the sync level or maybe at the Nginx level?
Nginx is, I can't remember at this point exactly what I had to do something in Nginx to make them go through, but I think it's the version 2 from what I remember from when I was researching that part.
Okay. Yeah, I was just asking because maybe you reached the limit because the connection limit was
I never seen
10 connection or something.
I've never seen the connection limit. I tried with like 5 people in parallel. It's working fine. That's the most I've checked. Okay. But yeah, I seem to remember that somewhere I read that there might be a limitation if I weren't using what I'm using, but I've never experienced it.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you explore any other options when you chose the send option when you started developing the multiplayer online feature? I mean, or maybe if you're planning a feature about sharing things between players.
Before having the roles for the players, I was just using like normal JavaScript refresh functions. Okay, so every 10 seconds you would refresh, and most of the time that was useless because there were no news. There was some news, and you wanted them fast, but maybe for 1 hour there was nothing to tell. So it's a lot of traffic. So that's when I found out about. I started researching what alternatives there were to this. I found out about server-sent events, and in trying to see how to implement them, I found where in Faro I would need to put a hook. And when I found it, it seemed curious that I found such a perfect place. And I checked for senders, and I realized that Faro already had this in sync. And I started using it, and it worked almost instantly. I know that WebSockets might give me maybe better performance in a high scale scenario with many users and stuff like that. But from what I've read, it's also really harder to make work in cloud situations. And now this is just, I don't know, like one section extra in Nginx two classes with 4 methods in Faro, and it's working. And it's scaled pretty well up to now. Okay. Thank you.